Okay, it's time to talk about Dr. Disrespect, I guess, because it's been the hot topic the last few days, right? There's always something on social media going on, especially in the bubble of Twitch and YouTubers and influencers and things, because they can't help but do things that are worth talking about and do things that are criminal and really bad that they shouldn't be doing. But obviously with the Dr. Disrespect situation, I wanted to wait at least a few days because with the allegations, something like this doesn't just come out as a rumor or an allegation within a week, basically going nuclear and people finding out what's real, what's more likely to be real at least, and what's fake. So basically, originally, people were saying, rightfully so, by the way, don't trust allegations without any evidence, because again, something I said in a recent video, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And there wasn't any evidence. And this wasn't like a journalistic report, because this is going to be a theme with this video going forward, and maybe a bunch of videos going forward. The people need to start understanding that there's a difference between somebody saying something and a credited journalist that has a track record putting their name on a byline and posting that story on a website, publishing that story. There's a big difference, and people seem to not be understanding that it's fine if you don't want to trust journalism, and it's fine if you have journalists you don't want to trust, but treating a journalist's report as a rumor or saying that a report adds nothing else, it just repeats information, is, I think it's an odd way to look at things, because one is substantial and the other one isn't. You can have a conversation about, whether you trust that journalist or whatever, but obviously then we're in a different conversation altogether. So basically what happened was this guy, Cody Connors, who is a former a former Twitch employee, just randomly, apropos of nothing, just posted he got banned because he got caught sexting a minor in the then existing Twitch Whispers product. He was trying to meet up with her at TwitchCon. The powers that be could read in plain text. Case closed, gang. No one made the wrong decision. Fuck him and his boys. Now, this is about Dr. Disrespect. And obviously, when Doc got banned, it was a huge drama, right? It was a huge thing, and everyone was speculating what it was. And what people need to understand is that a company like Twitch is never going to come out and just talk to you, especially when it comes to like policy and people being banned or any form of like moderation, for multiple reasons, but the biggest one is liability. When they say something, even if they are nailed on with what they're doing, as soon as they start talking about it and giving details, they open themselves up to lawsuits, not just from that person, but essentially people building a case of like history and context and policy. What's the best way to describe this? Like application of policy and adhering to rules. Because if you ban somebody for something and you tell them what it was, and then somebody else gets banned for something, but it like contradicts here or whatever, they open themselves up for other people in the future using that information in a lawsuit against them. So they're never going to tell you why somebody was banned, why you were banned, why they did X, Y, and Z, typically when it comes to something like that. So obviously once Doc was banned, they were not going to come out and say anything. And if he'd done something wrong, he was not going to come out and say anything for obvious reasons. And then he sued them, right? He took them to court, or at least forced arbitration or something to that extent, and they settled. This is going to play a factor in a minute when we start going over more details, but that's basically the timeline of things. He then went to YouTube, continued to rise, to be a massive success, to be a huge streaming star, one of the biggest to ever do it. And then obviously, like 4 years later now, after earning millions and millions and millions of dollars, and being that popular and having power over people and things, which again is going to play a factor, then this person comes out and posts this with no evidence. So obviously when somebody posts something like this, you can speculate and you can talk about it, but you're basically speculating on a rumor. This is not a journalist. This is not somebody you should inherently trust. This is a person saying things on his social media. And then obviously it came out that this person had been basically posting like, oh, come buy our tickets to our show for my band or my performance or whatever. And maybe we'll leak why a certain streamer was banned, obviously talking about Dr. Disrespect. And he'd been doing this for a while, like a year or something. So if it's something really serious, there's a few elements here that are important. And I'm going to talk about in a minute the ignored element of kind of what's getting lost when people are talking about this, which obviously there's the doc situation, then there's the Twitch situation, and then there's also like the people who knew, you know, the insiders, and why this is like a bigger deal than people think. So basically he was making light of it the whole time. Like if the allegations that you're putting forth are true, which we now know that they are, basically in a roundabout way, you're essentially trying to profit from and making jokes about somebody who is currently in a position of power over many people, in terms of like a social way and in terms of like status, joking about them being a predator and you knowing and never like actually really putting it out there and trying to stop this person who could potentially be doing harmful things to children. So that makes you culpable. And also to be like making a joke out of it, you look terrible. Regardless of whether you're telling the truth and it comes out as real, you're not the hero here. You're also a villain. And Twitch are villains as well when it comes to that. So then once this happened, obviously Doc came out and made some like really bullshitty statement. Obviously we're going to get to the big one in a minute, which is the huge thing. He basically said, Jake, seriously, I get it. It's a hot topic, but this has been settled. No wrongdoing was acknowledged and they paid out the whole contract. Now, the issue is here, this is legal speak, right? No wrongdoing was acknowledged. Is not saying I didn't do anything wrong. It's that in a lot of settlements, you'll have both parties will agree to essentially come out and say, whenever you settle anything, you always agree that there's no wrongdoing, because if not, you're admitting fault, right? And then there'd be no real reason to settle. Like, I've settled things before in a legal manner, and it will always say on both sides of the agreement, you know, I am agreeing to pay this, but I don't agree that I did anything wrong, right? And that's what the other side's going to sign as well. This is fairly standard procedure for any form of settlement. And they paid out the whole contract. That's irrelevant. Like, that's not even a point. That's whether they had to pay you or not is not part of the conversation. So it's a really weak defense, basically. And then he came out and said, listen, I'm obviously tied to legal obligations from the settlement with Twitch, but I just need to say what I can, since this is the fucking internet. I didn't do anything wrong. We're gonna fucking see in a minute that that's not true. All this has been probed and settled. Nothing illegal, no wrongdoing was found, and I was paid Elden Ring Monday. Now, they wouldn't be looking for illegal actions during a civil matter. These are two different things, although depending on where you are and how serious it is, during like discovery for any kind of like civil case or anything, they would potentially have felt obligated to, or would have reported this to authorities and had some form of like criminal investigation if it was very, very serious. Obviously, we're going to get to now, we don't know how serious, but we know things happened. So then today, today for most of you, yesterday for me, Cecilia Di Anastasio, which is a credited journalist who's written a lot of stories and has, as far as I'm aware, a pretty good reputation and standing, wrote an article on Bloomberg, which should basically tell you this is a fairly nailed-on thing. YouTuber Dr. Disrespect was allegedly kicked off Twitch for messaging minor. Now, it goes over here, and I'm not going to read the whole article, but you should. I'll leave a link in the video description. It goes over basically, this journalist has spoken to at least 5 different people, 5 different sources, whether you want to say that they're primary or secondary sources, based on the fact that they're employees that were involved in the situation, and not Doc or this alleged minor. Basically, they're saying they looked at his whispers, his direct messages on Twitch, and found that he'd been speaking to a minor, basically. And they say here specifically it says exchange sexually explicit messages with a minor through the service's direct chat feature, and then also asked a minor about her plans at the TwitchCon convention, according to two of the people who asked not to be identified, which is normal procedure. Now, obviously, again, the timeline of things here is some people were calling him every name under the sun with no evidence. Some people were defending him, saying that it's just rumors, which is true. This is how things should operate. If somebody just comes out and says something about somebody, we shouldn't just immediately assume it's true. As soon as this report dropped, you basically can bet your house on this. This is, some people were saying, and some people I even like, some big content creators on Twitter that have been going back and forth on this, were saying, oh, they're just repeating what was said. They're just repeating the rumor. As soon as, again, this journalist is not repeating a rumor. They're verifying based on their sources, which is how all journalism works. If you don't want to trust the process, if you don't want to trust the individual, understandable. But basically this, for me, pretty much confirms, without seeing a fucking video of it, with him, what level of evidence do you need, basically, if you're not going to trust this? You wouldn't probably trust some random leaked screenshots, because you'd say they could be fake. So if you're going that far, you basically need a video of him saying, hi, I'm Dr. Disrespect, and here's my messages, here's my phone, and showing it. But obviously, once a journalist says, I've spoken to all these people, this is what they say, I've verified this, they all work for the company, they've told me what's happened, you can pretty much say that this is mostly nailed on. And then obviously we get to the point of Doc comes out and basically confirms it. He literally, he just says he did it, basically, but then also tries to pretend that he didn't do anything wrong, even though he admits to the wrongdoing. He says, let's cut the fucking bullshit. As you guys know, there's no filter with me. I've always been up front with you guys, which is why I'm here now. I'm not going to read this whole thing, by the way. I'm just going to skim through it. A lot of people have been left in the dark about what happened. He talks about his sponsor dropping him basically into his game studio and him parting ways, which was a part of the timeline I left out because it's not massively important, but was a nod to the fact that this was going to come out and happen. And then he says, basically, due to the terms of his agreement, he couldn't speak about this, but now that two former Twitch employees have publicly disclosed the accusations, he can. And then he says, and this is just it. It's over, bro. You've done it. He says, were there Twitch whisper messages with an individual minor back in 2017? The answer is yes. All right, case closed. Fucking wrap it up, boys. Walk away. It's done. There's no circumstance, and again, we're gonna in a minute. Well, we might as well just say it. Were there real intentions behind these messages? The answer is absolutely not. Irrelevant. These were casual, mutual conversations that sometimes lean too much in the direction of being inappropriate, but nothing more. I'm of the opinion that no adult, like if you're 22 and you're playing fucking League of Legends and you speak to a 17-year-old normally, that's fine or whatever. If you're 22 and you're seeking friendship with people under 18, a little bit weird, but obviously if nothing untoward happens, and you keep it, PG-13, then fine. If you're 30 and you're playing games with minors and spending time speaking to minors, I just think that's fucking weird. Even if you're not doing anything, and obviously this is a bias that I have, I just think it's weird because at the stage of you being 30 in your life, there is nothing that you can gain in terms of like intelligent conversation or, a value add to your life by talking to somebody who has not lived life yet. Obviously, like this depends, but in like a friendship type of way, or where you're messaging back and forth and being playful and things with a minor, this is fucking weird, even if there's no inappropriate angle to it. But obviously, if you're super rich, super famous, you're married, you've got a kid, and you're talking inappropriately to minors, it doesn't matter. As soon as you admit to that, you're a fucking creep. You're a weirdo. You're a groomer, whatever you want to call it. As soon as you admit to doing that, it's over, bro. Like, nobody should ever take anything you say seriously. Everybody should look at you as a suspicious fucking loser, basically. And then obviously he goes on to say, you know, I'm not a pedo, I'm not a predator, blah, blah, blah. But you literally were talking inappropriately with a minor. There's no fucking two ways about it. You can't slice this any other way. And then obviously he goes on to say, like, to all my haters that live and breathe social media with zero life experience, I don't give a fuck about you. And that's it. Like, they're not haters, bro. You know, I used to watch Doc's content. I liked his content. I defended him when he cheated on his wife because obviously people are complex. Things happen, shit happens, and he's just a human at the end of the day. But there's no defending this one. Obviously, the question is, what was the level of inappropriate? Because obviously there's a degree here, but it seems like a waste of time even talking about that because we're probably never going to find out. And on top of that, like, as soon as you hear the word inappropriate and minor, it doesn't matter that much, right? A tiny bit's enough to label you as a fucking weirdo, because then you have to start bringing into question, like, what would have happened? Has this happened before? He'd probably do it again if he felt comfortable doing it at that point. He obviously has like some kind of idea in his head that this was okay. So anything after that is just kind of like, it's already enough to condemn him. So we can just kind of move on. And then he basically says, if you're uncomfortable with this entire statement and think I'm a piece of shit, that's fine. You are. I'm not going anywhere. You said you were quitting already, and most social media platforms are probably going to distance themselves from you anyway. I'm not the same guy that made this mistake all those years ago. Yeah, to be fair, this was 7 years ago, but you were an adult. I'm taking an extended vacation with my family, as mentioned on stream, and I'm coming back with a heavy weight off my shoulders. They want me to disappear. Yeah, fucking right. The funny thing is, well, is this was edited 3 times, and he repeatedly just kept changing whether it said minor or not. The first one, as you can see, said individual minor, and then the second one, he removed the word minor. As you can see here, he removed the word minor, and then he went and re-added the section. So yeah, he's fucked, basically. Now, a thing here that I've not seen a lot of people talking about, because this is over, this is, I can't say guilty in terms of like a legal fucking criminal way, but this guy's, we've seen enough, right? Nobody should be defending this at this point. If you want to have a conversation about like the extent, whatever else, that's, you can fucking do that. I think that's too far beyond the pale for me. He just is that guy for me, so never going to watch him again. And don't give a fuck what his opinion or what he says on anything. One thing I've not seen anybody really talk about is how the fuck did Twitch know? And what does this mean for Twitch and some of the people involved and some of the journalists? Well, obviously people have been talking about like NDAs. An NDA doesn't preclude other people from talking about this. It's between the signed parties. Obviously, if somebody worked at Twitch and then talked about this, there would be potential of like a lawsuit. But to be honest, if it's true, you probably wouldn't be all that worried about him suing you for defamation in the United States, because if it's true and you know it to be true and you didn't sign anything, I'd see it as like an obligation for you to say something and maybe protect people in the future. The same goes for Twitch. Now, the big thing here is that obviously, why the fuck did Twitch hide this and why did they settle? Which just shows that they did something wrong. And some of the rumors were they just wanted to get rid of him after the whole, like, you know, when he got banned when he was screaming in a public bathroom, which was fucking weird in and of itself at the time. They wanted to get rid of him, and they just decided to go through his whispers, which would be a breach of privacy and probably data protection and things like that, and then decided, based on what they'd seen from multiple years ago, to just ban him and not tell him why until obviously he took them to court. And that would be why they'd settle, which basically goes to show that Twitch has a fucking real big problem if that's the type of shit they've been doing. But obviously this is, again, a rumor, and we'll have to see. What does make sense to me, though, is that Twitch has obviously done something wrong here, because if they just got a report, like the Bloomberg thing said, the report here, if they'd got a report from the other user within those DMs and then read the messages, I don't see why they would have had to settle, because within their terms, there will be a clause for, like, don't be talking to kids, don't do things that are illegal, don't do things that break these terms of service. This is on every website ever, and they permabanned a bunch of people over the years and never had to settle with any of them. So the fact that they did just goes to show that Twitch was doing something they didn't want to come out in court. which is why you would settle in the first place. You don't go into a situation where you've done nothing wrong and you have all the power, and you're also taking... I've said this before, there's a few reasons to settle a matter. One, you did it and you just want to get it out of the way and just fucking avoid going to court and having that shit dragged. Two, you didn't do it, but you did something that you don't want people to know that could be used against you in the future, or other people could bring up a blah, 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 that could cause more damage. And three, you would take such a reputational hit from the actual thing that you just want to get it done, basically. Even if you've done nothing wrong, you just want to get rid of it. Four would be, I guess, if you've not got the money and basically you just want to not risk having a worse decision against you in court later down the line. You can pretty much get rid of most of these when it comes to Twitch because they've got tons of money. They were taking a massive beating publicly for banning him because he was one of the biggest streamers on the platform and everyone was clowning on Twitch because there was no reason given and never would be. So there's no like reputational aspect to it. Them coming out and saying, oh yeah, he actually did these things and winning in court based on that. Would have redeemed them in everybody's eyes and seen that they did the right thing. So obviously there only really leaves that Twitch did something and they didn't want people to know, or they did something where they thought if this did go to court, even if he did these things, they would lose and they would have to pay a bunch of money anyway. So obviously Twitch have been doing fucking something behind the scenes that caused them to have to pay him, you know, millions and millions of dollars and avoid redeeming their reputation in the public's opinion for having banned him for doing something everyone would agree is a bannable and reasonable reason to get rid of somebody from your platform or all platforms, basically. Which just goes to show, like, there's way more here than meets the eye. So yeah, there are, like, some elements to this that people need to examine a little bit closer. And the question is, if Twitch were doing something like just going out of the way to try and get this guy off the platform by reading his DMs and then they found something, obviously that would be a gross breach of, I believe, their own policy, data protection, privacy, things like that. And it makes you question, like, what else could they have been doing? And what else have they been doing to now? And why a lot of these employees that have been interviewed and been coming out about this, why are they former employees? You know, were they involved in some way if this was the case? But obviously this is just speculation. This is just rumor. If it is something huge like that, maybe it'll come out. But either way, I guess this puts it to bed. And I'm glad I didn't make a video originally when it came out. Like I said, it's always better to wait a couple days because things like this with such big companies, with so many people knowing and with such a big personality, somebody huge on social media, there's always going to be something that comes out more within the next couple of days, especially when it comes to they're going to say something anyway. Easy to read between the lines and see what people are saying. But I didn't have it on my bingo card when I woke up today and thought I'll post a video about this. That within a couple of hours he was going to post and basically say, yeah, fucking slap on the irons, boys, I actually did it. And also to basically say, you know, oh, to the haters, no, bro, that's actually just normal, well-adjusted people who don't think you should be talking inappropriately to minors. And if you're saying inappropriately, I don't know what the actual thing you were doing, because obviously nobody's going to admit to the actual reality. They're going to try and downplay it, right? Which is what he tried to do when he removed minor, added minor, and saying that, you know, oh, it's just the haters and blah, blah, blah. I didn't do this. I'm not a predator. By definition, if you're talking inappropriately to minors, you kind of are. I assume this is not the end of it and we'll see more come out, because this is like the big thing now when everybody's going to be talking about it and trying to get to the bottom, and maybe the victim comes out and posts the messages or something like that. But yeah, I'll cover it if it comes up. As it stands though, there's no reason to defend him anymore. I, of course, was originally going to make the video of, until there's evidence, until there's credible reports, then you've got to assume he's innocent and he's done nothing wrong, because if not, what sort of world are we living in? I know the fucked up one that we have been living in for a while, where people do this anyway, but what sort of world would it be where you could destroy somebody's life based on just a random person or a couple of random people saying something with no credible anything, nobody doing any research, nobody doing any investigation, nobody putting their name to it as somebody who has built up some kind of tenure and credibility in the industry and a track record. But yeah, there we go. It's a shame, but fucking big YouTubers, man, and big Twitch streamers try not to be a fucking creepy predator, challenge impossible mode. So there we go. Thanks for watching as always. Buy game subs. Which one we got here? Anime Girl Thigh. Buy them. Link in video description. Powder, put it in water, shake it, drink it, do those things, bop it, twist it. You know what I'm saying? See you next time. Peace out.